Alrighty. So hi everyone, thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Home Classroom Management for Students on the Spectrum. My name is Kristen Oliveras and I am the Senior Children's Librarian at the Monterey Park Bruggemeyer Library. And today I am joined by Jenny Fong from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Jenny is a board certified behavior analyst and today she'll be discussing strategies to help families of children on the spectrum transition to distance learning. Following Jenny's presentation, there will be time for questions. Like I said, we will be recording today's presentation and it will be posted to our YouTube channel following the webinar. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jenny.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining our webinar today. I'm so excited to be sharing this with you. So let's get started. With distance learning during these times, it's a transition for so many families, teachers, educators, and there are a lot of challenges that come with distance learning. So one of the things we want to look at is the environment. We want to establish a distraction-free distance learning spot. Many of our kids on the spectrum, they struggle with executive functioning skills, and that involves a tendency for them to get distracted, and they may have a hard time focusing. So, you know, the school is structured, and that structure usually includes minimal distractions, and at home, that may not be the case. So we want to ensure that we are creating a quiet, distraction-free space for your child to learn. And, you know, this space should include a spot that's away from pets, siblings, and your child should work in the same spot every day for consistency. And for some learners, it might help them if their schoolwork is kept in their backpack and in an area that is only designated for remote learning. You want to also, some examples of creating this distraction-free spot includes, like, maybe you might choose a smaller room with a desk space for your child, and this is a place for you to supervise. This could be a room that doesn't have any toys. Make sure there's no distractions that has music or any other distractions that might get in the way of learning. You want to give your child maybe noise canceling headphones if that helps him or her focus. Sometimes I know children on the spectrum are sensitive to noise, and sometimes those headphones help with that. And have all necessary materials at hand, so your learner, your child, doesn't need to have to interrupt work to have to look for them. Very important, we want to make sure that we are incorporating movement breaks into the day. These movement breaks help them feel regulated, you know, so they're not sitting for long periods of time. Attending is difficulty, especially when they're just sitting in front of a laptop, a computer. And so these movement breaks really help break up any tension that they may be experiencing for having to sit in front of a screen for extended time. Some examples, like we want to designate like specific areas where activities and remote learning take place. So it might be helpful to label the area, so that way your child will know, okay, this is when we do learning time. This is when I can have a break. So, you know, the labeling provides another way to add structure, and it helps establish routine to that area. So you can like set apart room in your living space where academics occur, and then set space where recreational activities occur. So that way they know that this is for playtime, free time. This is where I go to learn. Okay, and so let's move on. So in addition to having a distraction-free workspace for a child, we want to establish a schedule for the remote learning, right? This schedule is very specific to what occurs during remote learning time. So that way your child knows what to expect when they join in the Zoom session with their teacher. So you know, and that the schedule is to really help with transitions. I know transitions can be so hard for your child during when learning occurs at home, when there is a lack of routine, right? So transitioning is definitely a challenge for our kiddos. And we can help make this easier by having a visual schedule. And the visual schedule pairs an activity, and that pairing of the activity could be with an image, it could be paired with a photograph of the activity, and the visuals of an image or a photograph of what the child will be learning during that time is just to help them see what's happening, and it's to help them prepare what is next. What am I expected to do? So for example, we can have a photograph of the distance learning environment and put that next to the time that the school is starting. We can have a screenshot of any apps or programs your child uses and put that next to the name of the subject that they're going to learn. You can also add a photo of your child doing break time activities during scheduled breaks. Now, having a photo with your child in the picture will help them connect that, oh, this is what I do during this time. Like, oh, this is me having a break. This is what it looks like. You also might have a clock available, so that way you can refer to, okay, right now, depending on your child's level of skill, you might have analog clock or digital clock if that helps them. So that way having a clock handy helps your child know, okay, what time it is, and you can help you refer your child to the clock to help them stay on task. Even if your distance learning program has a flexible schedule, you can set a daily routine for your child. They benefit, the children benefit from routine and structure. So just set a time to start school every day and stick to that time. Consistency is key, just like they would follow the same schedule as if they're in the school setting, right? So you want to you can do different subjects in the same order each day, or you could set the same amount of time for each subject. Okay, math is going to be from 1 to 1:30. And science, 1:30 to 1:45. And then you want to make sure that you are establishing breaks that occur at predictable times, and you make sure you are ending the distance learning at the same time every day. You can also post the printed remote learning schedule near the workspace, so that way they connect that, oh, this is my remote learning workspace and this is my schedule. So that way they're more it associates what that space is used for. So here are some visuals of perhaps what a remote learning schedule might look like. You have like days of the week, and you see the activities throughout that day. And then there's boxes where your child can check off. So they see what's coming next, what's done. Having the check boxes is helpful, so that way they are in control of what they accomplished. So they feel that, oh, this is what I finished, let's check it off. It gives them a sense of accomplishment. It helps them know that they are in control of what they have finished. And we have like other forms of work schedules that are more simple. You can use like board maker icons and have them, maybe 5 of them on a strip, and it's in a row. Once they're done, if you have Velcro, like you can cut them out, put Velcro on the laminated icon, and then when they're done, they peel it off, they put it on the strip that says work done, and then they look forward to maybe earning a reward after when they're done. So, and also if your child needs time to wake up or have free time first thing before they start the remote learning, make sure to add that to your planning. That helps them feel a sense of order when everything is really broken down and included in part of their day. Sometimes, if they wake up cranky first thing, make sure we plan the remote learning later. So, you know, if the school has given that flexibility. So we want to consider that as well too. And if you have like family members, like siblings or other individuals in the household that have a different schedule, try to have everyone working around the same time that your child is online. So that way your child doesn't feel like he or she is missing out on something great that's happening around her. You know, you don't want them to feel like, wait, my brother's going out playing right now and I'm doing work. You know, they're going to feel that they're missing out. So make sure everyone follows the same routine schedule to keep everyone on the same page. That really helps keep them engaged in the remote learning. And here are some examples of remote learning schedules, you know, that are very customized or individualized, right, to the individual's level of skill of how they interpret a schedule. So we have like a written schedule just on a dry erase board, you know, the times of the subjects, and they're broken down by intervals, there's check boxes you can check off. We have more like iconic visuals where it's like, okay, to do, this is what you have to do. When you're done, we can put the check mark next to it. And then we have one where it is labeled like numbered 1 through 5, and they complete it sequentially in that order. Or some of our children or more, they can just read words, so you can just use a written schedule. So they don't have to be fancy or laminated or have Velcro, you know. Picture schedules or written schedules, they both work. Just find the one that is best for your child, because the most important thing is just to develop a clear structure and routine that can be easily understood. Put schedule on the wall, place it on a table where work is completed, or right next to the remote learning workspace. So that way they can easily access it, refer to it, and it helps them guide their day. So in addition to having a schedule or planning for a schedule, we want to offer choices. You know, we want to allow our children to decide what they want to do, because when they decide what they want to do, it gives them the control that I know I can choose, or I can select what I want to do. So if you are developing a remote learning schedule together, you could say, okay, would you like to do math, then handwriting, or handwriting, then math? Because either way, they have to do both, but the order of it can vary. You know, you might say, you have to read one chapter and do a science sheet. Which would you like to do first? If you have to do like a list of various things, you know, oh, we got to fold clothes today, we got to do this, review vocab words, log on and email your teacher. You decide what order we do these things in. So let's write the list together. What's first, what's next? Giving them the option to choose establishes autonomy, and it allows them to feel they are in control of their workday, and it helps them be more in compliance with following the schedule. So we want to make sure we are setting clear expectations for our children, and we are sticking to them, right? Set reasonable goals for your child. It's okay if he or she doesn't learn and do everything they normally would during the school year, but just try to set goals that are achievable. You know, if you make those goals, then you can raise the bar, you know, and go back to the basics. Just figure out which of your students' needs or your child's needs you can best meet, and focus on those first. So think about your child's strengths and needs, and begin with the successful activities, things they already know how to do, things that they have been successful in. So that way we set them up for success, and that it really minimizes all the challenges in between of having to adjust to this new schedule. In addition to having a remote learning schedule, in general, we should also establish a daily schedule and create routines. So like throughout the week, ensure to follow a regular routine. You know, with us being home each day, it's easy for us to stop keeping a regular schedule, right? And that throws us off. That throws off their normal sleep habits and eating times. So try your best to keep the day as similar to usual as possible. So you might be keeping the same morning and evening routines, same lunchtime, and include breaks. So the daily schedule is just a general schedule throughout the day, if that helps them know what the day consists of. So like here, there's a written schedule with hand drawing, and it's just posted on the fridge. You know, it shows when breakfast is, what we're going to do after breakfast, what's after lunch, when is free play, when is dinner time. It'll help to know the events of the day. And then over here, we have another example where the times are paired with the activities throughout the daily schedule. Like there is games and puzzle at like 4 o'clock, or you can do some snacks around 10:30. So having that is also helpful, in addition to a separate remote learning schedule that is specific for the distance learning time. So, you know, understanding more concretely days that are learning days rather than like family days, it really helps like decrease anxiety, and it helps give children like a sense of order, because a daily schedule helps create new routines. And by maintaining that regular schedule during this closure, it's going to help make it easier for your child to transition back to school when it reopens. So in your daily schedule, you want to ensure that we are building time for physical activity. You know, we want to incorporate physical activity breaks. We want to include activities that focus on targeting fine and gross motor activities. You know, all of those help encourage both physical and mental well-being. And, you know, you can also use this time for like family connection by doing activities outside together, if that's applicable for you, you know, or you can also try to do some like at home workouts. I know on YouTube, there you can search for like a whole bunch of like family friendly workouts and yoga classes and for kids, and schedule and plan these breaks in your daily schedule. And by sticking to it, you can model a habit of regular daily physical activity, which our children needs. And, you know, adding to your daily schedule, household chores, you know, that's schedule some time for cleaning and some housework. You know, doing chores are definitely a great way to help encourage progress in daily living skills. This is an opportunity to help take advantage of that extra time being at home together, and it helps teach more independent living skills. And while they're engaging in some of these simple household chores, like make sure we're offering lots of praise and reinforcement for them following along with their schedule. I know it's something that that may be new to them, but having family members join in on simple household chores and everyone working together will help really bridge the gap between these challenges. And, you know, with you know, these daily schedules, just be patient, be realistic. You know, you want to start small. You might have a more loose structure, and so if the structure is not too secure, you know, it might be overwhelming for them. And so involve your children in planning for the learning and creation of the schedule when possible. You know, keep them involved in the planning, and make sure there's breaks for everyone just throughout the day. You know, if there's too many activities to do during the day, like break it up. You know, minimize the number of activities, because sometimes if we add too much to a schedule, it can be overwhelming. So start small, build up as they get used to it, and then as they adapt more to the schedule, they will feel more comfortable, and then you can add more activities on there. Here are some examples of daily schedules for the day. I think you can find them online. You know, for instance, like there's cleaning checklists, you know, and they can check it off. You can do like a monthly calendar that indicates when remote learning is at home, when there's no school, so that way they can help refer to it. And we want to ensure that we are, putting the fun stuff on a break at least 15 minutes before work is set to begin, right? So, if your child has a favorite TV show or video game, they're playing, we want to make sure that we put that away for at least 15 minutes or so before work is set to begin. Letting them know ahead of time, it will really help smooth like the transition of when they have to then transition to their distance learning. Make sure we're priming them ahead. Like you can say, okay, in 30 minutes, we're going to check your school schedule and see what we're going to do first. All right, in 15 minutes, remember, we are going to be starting with math today. So when you're done with math, you can get a break. So make sure we're priming them ahead of time. So that way, even if they do know the schedule is visible and it's accessible, we want to communicate that to them verbally of what's next, so that way they hear what is expected, and then they can then see what they have to do next. I know sometimes the transitions can be hard when they say, okay, hey, right now you're all done. Let's transition, or let's sit down and do work, right? Sometimes that might trigger a behavioral challenge in the child when an activity is all of a sudden stopped and they're not ready to transition. So definitely prime them ahead of time, let them know what's coming up. I know for our children on the spectrum, like sensory needs are so important. We want to ensure that we are managing those needs during remote learning. So, at school, many kids on the spectrum, like they need to have their sensory needs managed throughout the day, right? And then this can take in the form of like, they might get breaks. Sometimes they get sensory stimulation. Your child might use special tools, that include fidget toys or bouncy chairs. So if you're not sure what kinds of sensory tools or breaks your child receives during the school day, you might want to look at his or her IEP, the individualized education plan, to see what sensory items are listed. And you can find those items under the IEP in the accommodation section. And then it should then indicate what they were working on in the school setting. So that way you can try your best, to replicate those sensory breaks at home. And you will have to know that you may have, you will have to modify them just a bit based on the equipment and facilities that you have at hand, right? We have to really work with what we have. So for instance, like if your child receives a 10-minute quiet time break, like every hour at school, you want to make sure that they are having those breaks at home too when they're doing remote learning. So, and if your child, say they sit in the bouncy chair at school to help them with their need for movement, you want to ensure we kind of replicate that and, get a bouncy chair for the home as well too. Or you can even try a stack of pillows. So that way it gives them that sensory input that they have already received when they were in school. Sometimes kids use fidgets at school, and you can try to replicate those that you might have at home. And some kids get breaks for active time. So like they may walk around the halls at school. And so we want to also add that into our remote learning schedule. So that way they can take a walk around maybe outside your home as well too. And so if like your child has strong tactile sensory interests, like keep a few sensory toys that they can interact with in a specific area, right? You can make sure that these toys are regularly sanitized, so that way you can teach your child how to regulate their sensory needs. So right here, an example, we have a small table and the children are interacting with some sensory items, sitting on a yoga bouncy ball, sitting in a bouncy cushion pad that really helps regulate their sensory needs. Having that, the sensory integration incorporate in their day will really help promote a really mental, emotional well-being as well too. And we want to ensure that we are breaking work into small chunks, and then we can build up to longer periods of sitting as they adapt to their new routine, right? So we want to start off with a short time. So this depends on your child's ability, and some children might be able to only sit for 1 minute before they need a break, or some can sit for 15 minutes at a time. So depending on your child's ability, you want to gradually build up the time he or she must sit and attend. Make sure that we're not starting off with such a higher amount of time for them to sit. Like if we expect them to sit for 30 or 15 minutes, in a Zoom class, because that's what a teacher wants, you want to ensure that we look at the ability of what our child can do. If they can only sit for like 5 minutes, have them sit for 5 minutes, give them a break, have them come back, and then have them continue to build upon that time. So that way we're not overwhelming them with the time that is expected. Offer some flexibility, because it's tough. It's tough for them to adapt to a new routine, new expectations. And so if your child has to set a time to log on to class, you want to make sure that he or she has a break before. Give them a small break, if they need that. Have them make sure to use the restroom, have a snack. And so when the time arrives, he or she is ready. Reinforcement and motivation. This is a very important area, right, for behavior change and for positive behaviors. Reinforcement and motivation are so essential to building positive behaviors. So we want to identify as many reinforcers based on the child's preferences, right? They may like tangible rewards. They may like breaks, activities, games. So asking our children to do schoolwork at home is definitely challenging, right? But it helps to have something to motivate them to get the work done. And so you can also do this by arranging their schedule, so that way they do learning time before the fun activities. So we might say, okay, first schoolwork, then we can play outside. Or we can say, we are going to complete the math worksheet and then you're free. First math, then break. So the reward and incentives come after, but we want to ensure that they are based off of your child's preferences, because they can be very selective. We want to make sure that it's something that they do decide or they do want to do after. You can set up the incentive system, and put it on the schedule, so that way they see what's next, what they can earn, or you can put it maybe in a separate visual or chart that is like maybe a choice board, a rewards selection visual that they can choose what they want. And like for this applies to everyone, even like say even for us as adults, like we work for a paycheck, and that paycheck is our reinforcer. So we want to give our children the same opportunity to work for something they want. Make sure that when you are selecting reinforcers that they want to work for, have enough of those reinforcers to last through the upcoming weeks, right? So for example, like if your child likes building Legos, allow them to work for a few minutes and then have them, play with the Legos. And you can set a time limit for them to play with the Legos, so that way they know there is a time to transition from it. Use a timer. You can use your kitchen timer, or you can use the alarm on your phone. And that way they can hear the alarm go off, or they can see the alarm, or how much time they have left before they transition back to work. You want to also deliver reinforcement as often as you can, right? We want to praise them for all the positive behaviors they are doing. We want to reinforce them for sitting, for trying, for following through, for finishing their work, or even just sitting and staying with you. Every little thing we notice, or we need to recognize it and really praise them for what they're trying to do, right? We want to also deliver reinforcement that is behavior specific, and that is through verbal or social praise. So that you want to specify what they're doing well in. So hey, you're doing an awesome job sitting. Like I really like how you're having calm body. You have nice quiet hands. Thank you for listening. You're doing awesome. So you want to specify what they're doing well, because they don't know what they're doing well in. They need to hear it. And to hear from you, it will really help promote more positive behaviors in their learning activity throughout the day. And sometimes you're going to have to need to prompt them, right? They may be doing something that is not appropriate. They may be getting up. They may be not following along. And you may have to prompt them to, like, hey, come back, sit down, stay here. But we have to ensure we're balancing those prompts or directives with a 4-to-1 ratio. So if you have to prompt them, ensure you're following a 4-to-1 ratio. So we want to balance it with like 4 praises every time we give them a corrective statement. Every time we tell them something like, oh, hey, come back here, sit down, or write your name, right? Those are all corrective statements. They're prompts. So we want to balance it with 4 additional praises thereafter. So they're hearing more good than bad. They're hearing more good than, oh, I'm not doing anything right, right? We want to balance it out. So providing rewards. So let's continue talking more about what the rewards look like, right? They can be activities, right? They can be activities that your child can look forward to each day. And we can incorporate these activities that are, you know, that is mixed with activities that you might be teaching for the first time, right? So maybe they may be learning something new, and we want to make sure that the activities really match with how difficult the task is. If they really don't like to do math, you want to make sure the reward that comes after is going to be a big reward, or it's highly reinforcing or highly preferred, something that they don't typically earn. Like maybe they don't really play video games because you only allow them once a week to play. But if they work so hard in a subject that they don't like and they earned it, give them something that is highly reinforcing. So that way we're building up their motivation for next time they do it. And you can come up with a list of fun activities, right? It doesn't always have to be screen time. You know, you give your child the opportunity to choose from, you know, various activities, you know, like art, playing outside, and, you know, if possible, spend at least 10 minutes doing that one activity together. You know, spending some time doing activity together gives them the motivation and the reinforcement that they feel like, oh, mom and dad are involved with me. You know, it lets them know like we're all in this together. You know, we can say things like, hey, yeah, you made it, or, you know, let's go play in the backyard now, you finished. Or you can give your child some free time with games to play, give them a high five, you know, give them thumbs up, pat on the back. You know, those are some social reinforcements. And then, you know, even activities can include like cooking. You know, if that's something that they like to help out with, cooking, baking, gardening, doing some chores, if that's what they like to do, playing board games, outside games. So there's just so many different like reinforcers, activities that we can use to help motivate them throughout the day. And, you know, we want to ensure that when we are delivering reinforcement, that it is immediate, right? Timing is the key. So as soon as your child has finished remote learning tasks, give them the reinforcer right away. They earned it. It should be immediate. So, you know, if it's not immediate and they have to wait for it, then they will less likely do the work next time. They're like, wow, I just finished, you know, math, science, and writing, and I get my reinforcer like 2 hours later. Next time, they're not going to work so hard because they know that they're not going to, you know, they're not going to, they have to wait for it. They're not going to feel motivated to try to work, you know, that much. So you want to make sure it's immediate. You want to also ensure to consider increasing how often the reinforcer is delivered throughout the day. If we're giving them the same reinforcer throughout the day, they become satiated, right? If they become satiated, they're not going to feel motivated to get to something that they always get. If they're playing video games all the time, and then we remove that video game so that way they can earn for it, well, if they're playing video games all the time, they're going to be less likely to want to work for something they already, you know, play all the time. So make sure you're designating the reinforcer or designating novel reinforcers specifically for remote learning time. So that way they don't always get access to it. And if they don't always get access to it, it's going to establish more potency in the reinforcer that, oh, this is something that I only get when I finish remote learning. So that way it also helps to increase the behaviors you want to see more. We can also use a first then board. First then board really helps visualize for the student or child what they need to do first and what's next, you know. So for instance, like the first activity is work. The second activity is something they want to do. And this follows the pre-MAC principle. And the pre-MAC principle is essentially like when we have a requested reinforcer or reward as the next activity, that requested reinforcer or reward, it motivates the learner to complete the less preferred task before he or she earns reward. So what comes next is going to be that motivator to have them finish what's first. So we see for these examples, we see first, you know, first work, first math, and, you know, first learning time. And then they get to play video games, or first reading, then tablet time. It really will help motivate them to complete what's first and what they get next. And it's very simple. If sometimes they respond auditorily to what's told, that works. But if they're more visual learners, having it written out, whether you write it or draw it or have a picture of it, paired with you telling them, that will be more effective than you just saying first then. So in addition to that, we have other visuals, right? We have I'm working for chart. There is that. It's a token system where the child learns, where the child earns tokens, right? They earn tokens toward a reward of their choice. The tokens can be something the child likes or enjoys, such as a favorite toy or a character from a show or a movie. And this can be utilized in their remote learning by having them earn a token after each completed activity on a schedule. So for instance, like we have, I'm working for, there's 4 blank squares for them to fill in. And every time they complete work or a subject, they get a token. And then once they earn all their tokens, they can earn the reward. Sometimes that's really helpful. Sometimes we may have more tokens on there. We might even have as much as 20 spots or 10. And the tokens can be given for them even completing like maybe 10 problems, reading a page. It doesn't always have to be 1 token for every subject completed. It could just be like a token for them sitting, a token for them writing their name. So you want to break it down in a way that works best for your child. Sometimes we might use a punch card. Punch card is another individualized support. You know, we can give out like punches on the card for behaviors that are expected, for them completing tasks, and then after a certain number of punches, then they earn a reinforcer. Sometimes that might be reinforcing for them. We got to find out what works for them. So just make sure that we are setting a clear system that's immediate. There's tangible rewards after the completion of that expected behavior or task, and you know, this can be done in small steps. And sometimes the system can be more complex, such as earning tokens throughout the day. It just really depends on what your child prefers. You know, what will they most likely work for. And so, you know, in addition to like remote learning schedules, daily schedules, incentives, we want to make sure that we are creating rules as you know, the rules that they will follow in the school. We want to make sure that we are creating rules around remote learning at home. You know, they rely on rules and routines to keep their environment predictable and to help them understand what's expected. So make sure there are like, you know, a set of rules to help define expectations during remote learning. So you can just do like maybe 3 to 5 rules that help describe the expected behavior. You want to be specific when you're describing the behavior. You know, use concrete language. Keep it short, clear, and concise. You know, and you can post the rules visually, so that way you can teach them to your child and reference them when a reminder is needed. You know, and then you can, and it's important for you to gesture to the rules instead of just telling them what the rule is. You know, have it just like in a classroom, like the teacher might have a visual of the rules on the wall, and they review it every morning, they point to it, and then the class recites the rules out loud. So in a way, replicate that and then ensure that you are reinforcing your child for following the rules, because they don't know they're following the rules. We want to make sure that we recognize that they are following the rules. So for instance, we have like this visual, my remote learning rules: eyes watching, ears listening, voice is quiet, body is still, and we do work. Okay. We also have our child's individualized education plan and behavior intervention plan to help identify additional supports that they may need during remote learning, right? So one of the challenges, parents and caregivers face is managing challenging and severe behavior. This is something that may happen during school, but it happens at home when school is at home. So, whether it's our child refusing to do schoolwork at home or like throwing a full-blown tantrum, we want to ensure, how do we respond to those challenging behaviors when it's occurring at home? If possible, try to review your child's individualized education plan and behavior intervention plan, if they have it, to identify supports. If there is an effective behavior plan in their IEP, make sure that can be successfully used in the home setting. And families and household members should continue to implement the plan as written. If there's any questions or concerns about how to implement the plan, reach out to your teacher or case manager to identify ways to create a safer environment and problem solve those proactive behavior support strategies that can be implemented during this time while they're at home. If your child has aggressive behaviors, ensure that there's a plan in place, so that way everyone at home knows what to do if they ever feel unsafe, or if there is any self-injurious behaviors happening. We want to make sure that our child is safe as well as others. And then this might also involve creating a safe place or safe space in your home where they can go to, such as maybe their bedroom, or maybe a room in a house that has calming items like pillows, a beanbag, cushions, a couch that they can lie on. Sometimes we might be able to set up that in their house, so that way if they're feeling frustrated, they have a behavior outburst, whatever the triggers may be, then they can go to their safe space to calm down. Sometimes we might use a visual to help them calm down. So right here we have an example, a calming strip to help the child take deep breaths. And you will have to model, to your child, to the learner, of how to take deep breaths, because them hearing it, them being told how to do it, is not as effective of us showing them how to do it. So make sure we're modeling to them how to take a deep breath, do it along with them. And then there's a visual to help guide them. So if they need the visual, as you help them calm down, you can give them like the icon for them to put on the calming strip. Awesome, good, taking a deep breath. There you go. Another one. Let's do 5, 2 more. You got it. Good work calming down. Make sure that when they are engaging challenging behavior, you want to focus on their emotional well-being. Have them calm down first before we reapproach the situation with what is on the schedule. We don't want to overwhelm them. We don't want them to over-escalate and escalate even more in their current challenging behavior, right? We want to focus on them calming down first before we reapproach what they were expected to do. So, many of you are in connection with teachers, right, and school staff. So make sure that we keep in contact with them, right? Reach out to them, ask your teachers and school staff for modifications when needed, right? Advocate as much as you can. You know your child the best. Set up meetings to discuss IEPs and 504 plans, as well as distance learning accommodations as early as you can. right? You want to discuss these things so that way we can talk about how to reduce, like, the child's workload and to maximize their time in one-on-one instruction with the teacher if possible. We want to ensure that we're communicating these concerns so that way their work is broken down for maybe each day or maybe each week, depending on their level of functioning for remote learning. For instance, like sometimes like our child might be able to do one side of the worksheet instead of completing both sides. Sometimes completing 2 pages or both sides is too challenging to complete in one day. So, checking with their teacher to see if there can be modifications to the schoolwork that will help promote success. We don't want to set them up for failure. We want our child to know that, hey, you did 1 page. That's awesome. All done. You got this. Build upon that after that. You do 1 page for 2 weeks. The third week, maybe, if they are doing well, they may be able to do 2 pages. So we want to start small, build up the success gradually for them. We don't want to make them feel like they are not doing well just because the expectations are high for them. We want to make sure we are modifying them to promote success. We want to ensure, so communicate, collaborate with child's teacher as much as possible. And very important, right? During these times, like all of us are experiencing limited opportunities to socialize. But for our kiddos with on the spectrum, it is so important for them to continue to be socializing even remotely, right? They are more susceptible to social isolation and loneliness. So and being at home most of the time, it definitely is those feelings are definitely worsened by us being at home more. So we want to promote more positive social support during this period. We want to ensure social connections continue. You may find time to check in to help identify, who close friends are and help develop a plan about how to connect with one another. We want to consider maybe sharing contact information with a teacher to pass to a classmate. I know sometimes some teachers may have, or if there's opportunities of like a Zoom room or a Zoom game that, everyone can join in on their laptop or computer so that way they can see their classmates together. There's options available. You can do like text messaging, you can do a FaceTime, Google Hangout, Google Meet, or other apps too. Just figure out like which form of socialization works best for a child. If they don't like phones, don't have them call people, don't have them talk to people if that's something they don't like. You will have to use this time to be creative and try things that aren't immediately comfortable for them, and try to vary how you communicate. So like if they, we don't have to resort to just video chat. We don't have to only do texting. There are other ways to socialize remotely. You might have, if they have a pen pal, if they have a neighbor, if they have a friend, a cousin nearby, maybe have them write a letter to them and send a letter to them, keep an exchange of those letters going if that's something that they like. So we want to ensure that we're incorporating opportunities for remote socialization as much as possible during this time, or if there's opportunities of if within the same household, if it's safe, outside play, playing, riding bikes outside, going for a walk with mom and dad, to see their neighbors across the street, whatever it may be, make sure we try to incorporate that as well too. Okay. So in addition to supporting behavior, as we know, behavior is a form of communication, whether it's adults or children. Behavior is how we communicate. Some people on the spectrum, they may not be able to verbally express their fear or frustration or anxiety with words, right? They may not be able to tell us, oh, I'm feeling mad, I'm frustrated right now, or I don't like what you're doing. They may not be able to tell us that. And sometimes when they're not able to tell us that, those expressions may be demonstrated through other means, such as through tantruming or through behavior outbursts or through aggression, right? And so we want to provide access to visual supports to help our child learn to self-regulate during a difficult time. Even for individuals who use spoken language, You know, they even for individuals who do use language to communicate, they might still engage in challenging behavior because stress and anxiety levels are at a high. And when stress or anxiety are at a high, it definitely does hinder our ability to really communicate with words in that moment, right? It's sometimes difficult for us as adults too, you know, like sometimes we throw tantrums too. We're not able to use our words to tell others how we feel, you know, we get mad and we exhibit our frustrations in ways that are observable, but they might not be verbal. So it's important to look behind the behavior to identify what your child is trying to tell you, right? So sometimes if there's visuals, so like we have like a visual strip, I want blank, please. So they can choose what they want. If they're trying to communicate, but are not using words, you can use visuals for them to select what they want. They can point to what they want. They can reach for what they want if, you know, depending on their skill set, right? Some may be visual, they might point, they may tell you, they may give you an icon, they may use sign language with you, they may use an AAC device. So whatever it is, try to focus on functional communication instead of using the behavior that they're exhibiting to communicate. Always try to incorporate functional communication, whether it's visual, verbal, AAC device, sign language. And here are some examples to support behavior during remote learning. So just make sure that we're using positive reinforcement, responding calmly if challenging behavior occurs, because if there's a challenging behavior, so important for us as parents, caregivers, family members, it's important for us to stay calm. Because if we express anger or frustration, it's going to result more in the challenging behavior from the child. So remain calm and make sure that we are providing safety and support as they learn to calm themselves. And if they do have a behavior intervention plan, make sure that that is followed across members of the household, so that way everyone is consistent and everyone is aware of how to approach a behavior challenge when it occurs. That's so important, of how we approach it, how we react to it. And the behavior intervention plan also highlights antecedents. Antecedents are proactive strategies that we can apply to prevent the likelihood of challenging behavior occurring. Another strategy to help prevent challenging behavior, right? We might use visuals like choice boards, first stand strips, a timer if that helps them. I mean, timers are helpful really just to help know what's expected, what's next. It helps with transitions. And help your child understand their emotions and teach them to self-calm. So self-regulation is definitely, self-regulation is the ability for them to manage emotions and behavior. So it's important for them to learn to cope and learn the coping skills that they need to learn to calm. Model the coping skills. So going back to how we can support their behavior, we want to ensure that we're modeling coping skills. At the moment that a behavior challenge or behavior difficulty is happening, model those coping skills for them, because sometimes our children are not able to self-calm. So we want to help them through that process by teaching them, modeling it with them, and reinforcing it too. Say, hey, oh, nice calm body, you're doing an awesome job. I like how you calm down. You're doing great. Thank you. So make sure we're recognizing that they're trying, right? And so on the left right here, we have examples of behavior specific praise. A lot of times, like when we are reinforcing, like I think as parents, we do a good job, right? You say good job, like good job. But the thing is, the more we keep repeating the same praise, it becomes less effective. You hear it all the time. You're like, well, you're telling me good job for everything I do. Okay, well, that means nothing anymore, right? So instead of saying good job all the time, we want to vary it. We want to specify what they're doing good at by varying the praises. Like, oh, I like the way you're sitting on your chair. I like the way you're paying attention. Oh, you are so smart in math. wow, I can't believe you finished that page all by yourself. So you want to vary your praises. You want to specify what they're doing well in. So other points to consider, again, just reiterating some recaps of some things we discussed, include your child in the planning and decision-making process as much as possible to help him or her feel more in control. During these challenging times, like we don't know what's happening, right? And especially for our children, they don't know what's happening. It's on us to tell them what's happening. But then when we involve them in the planning process and in their schedule and their day, it helps them feel like they are in control, and that helps decrease levels of anxiety and stress for them when they are making decisions for themselves based on you modeling it for them, based on you telling them what they can select or choose for their day. And we want to discuss expectations of academic work each week. So your child is working on planning and problem solving just like he or she would during a school day. So when setting your expectations, remember when we, even completing one math problem or writing the first letter in one's name can be overwhelming for some children, right? Some can't do that, and that's okay. So we want to make sure that we should readjust our expectations, so that way we know that we can't fully replace our child's teacher, but we can readjust those expectations so that way we start off with small steps and build upon those steps that lead to continuous success. And then just because if there's any medication your child is taking, be sure to continue with that. That's so important. If your child normally takes a stimulant for school, keep giving it to them, because online school is still school. So this is just one more challenge, right? Distance learning provides a unique challenge for those with children on a spectrum, but just know that you have many valuable insights and years of experience of having gone through so many challenges. You know your child better than anyone, and you know the strategies that you can apply to promote his or her success. This is just another challenge you will overcome with wisdom and strength, so you can do it. Okay, and if there's any questions, feel free to let us know. I can stay for a little bit and answer all your questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenny. That was a lot of really great information. So if anybody does have questions, we can hang around for a few minutes. Feel free to enter those into the chat. And Jenny will stick around and answer any questions you may have.